Welcome to the Zaymont program. Thank you for tuning in tonight. From time to time we have the opportunity to bring special guests that can really bring truth and reality to situations that otherwise we don't hear from the major media in this country. And tonight we have as those special guests Ms. Raphaella Segal and Shoshannah Shilo that's joining us. Raphaella and Shoshannah are from the community of Kedumim in Samaria. About 30, 40 miles north of Jerusalem, something like that?
Yes,
something like that?
Miles north
25 or so miles from Tel Aviv.
Yes.
So we welcome you all tonight to the Zaymont program.
Thank you.
We're very happy to have you join us. Both Raphaella and Shoshannah have children in the IDF and were deployed during the recent operation in Gaza, which I guess technically is ongoing in that sense. I read of missiles still coming out of Gaza and IDF action there. The first thing I want to ask you all, often in the media, almost always in the media, we hear about the very, very horrible settlers that live in the so-called occupied West Bank, Judea and Samaria of Israel. You all are some of those settlers, are you not? And
we are proud to be.
Proud to be settlers. Tell me why you feel it's important for you and your Jewish friends and brothers and sisters and whatever to live in a place like Samaria.
Judea and Samaria are actually the biblical areas that the Jewish nation was found by these areas. Abraham, Jacob, Isaac, all the Jewish people were living there, started the Jewish journey. It was promised to Abram, the land forever, in Elon Moreh, close to Kedumim. And we are living in those typical biblical areas that without Jewish presence there, actually we have no right to have the whole of Israel. This is our ticket, that Israel belongs to us.
So that highland of everywhere from Shechem to Hebron or wherever, is the real heartland, biblical heartland of Israel. Much more meaningful to you than Tel Aviv or Haifa in that regard.
It's the only reason to stay in Haifa, in this reality, irrational reality with million Arabs, is only the rights that we have and the history right that it belongs to us.
So I know from speaking with you all in the past that you consider yourself an important part of the ongoing redemption plan of God and whatever God is doing. How do you see that and your role in the more general sense of redemption in Israel and in the world in general?
We see all the time progress. The population in Judea and Samaria is growing despite the difficulties, against all odds, despite terror events. We are raising already the 4th generation in the area that feel committed to settle the land, that are following our wake, going to more difficult places, outposts. Our children are also involved in the best units in the army. And we see a growing generation that are connected to the sources and to the life and to strengthen the life in Shomron. So we see that it's going on.
One of the things, obviously we have a new administration in this country and a new Secretary of State, and President Obama recently sent George Mitchell to the Middle East to again try to develop some sort of, in their words, a peace plan or whatever, all of which brings us to a Palestinian state. That's what their aspirations are. 3 years or 3.5 years ago, Mr. Sharon, who was then Prime Minister, took the communities of the Jewish communities in Gaza withdrew them, evacuated them, uprooted them, whatever words we want to use, as a sign or a token of peace toward the Palestinians. Now, I know the recommendation of Mr. Mitchell, whenever he makes a recommendation, will be to uproot the communities of Judea and Samaria where you live. What has been your experience in the past when Jewish communities have been uprooted and that territory or area given to the Palestinians? Has that really panned out for you to give you peace and security?
So if we check the 35 years that we are living in Judea and Samaria, we had an informal peace actually while we came and built the communities with the Palestinians around us. They accepted us. They understood that they lost the war, that we are coming to our home, and this was our message and the reflection. Since Oslo was signed and they spoke about giveaway of land, we saw the deterioration. And we saw how the informal peace turned to a war, to an actual war, hatred, hostility, and especially before 3 years, when we went out of Gaza, the situation deteriorated extremely from about few rockets here and there to 6,500 rockets in 3 years. And the huge range that it reaches, the launch of the rockets and the intensity, the hostility, you can see the direct connection between withdrawal and the security deterioration in Israel.
Raphaella and Shoshannah shared last evening with our group about the examples of withdrawal and the effects of it. I'd like you to comment, like you did last night, for example, about your experience in South Lebanon, back, I think it was 2000 when Mr. Barak withdrew, when he was prime minister, and now you've just spoken about Gaza. So the lesson when there are Israeli compromises toward so-called peace by withdrawing from territory, the result is always what?
We see two borders in Israel, the Lebanon border and the Gaza border. In 3 years, we had 2 wars. The Lebanon border, which we don't have any territorial dispute about it. There's a fence there, no settlers. The same in Gaza. We left to the last inch. No dispute about the land, no settlers that are an obstacle to peace, and fences. We see these borders became more dangerous than where we are living inside Shomron next to Shechem, with Arabs around us. And the lesson is that it is not the withdrawal and concessions that bring the peace. Number one, in our area, the army is acting there, and there's this intelligence activity, and there's no way that they can harm us because the infrastructure is totally destroyed. They have attempts, okay, but they are there. And there's a direct connection. This is the most important issue between the presence of the army and where there are communities.
Right.
And in Gaza, when they left the Philadelphia route, which is the Gush Katif area, they couldn't leave the army there because wherever there's Jewish life, you have an army. Otherwise, it's like occupation. And we can see where we are living, there's army, and if, God forbid, no communities, there won't be an army, and the same picture that we see in Gaza will repeat itself in our area.
There is one very important point is when we left Lebanon, it was direct influence and on the Palestinians in Judea and Samaria, and the Intifada started exactly when the when the soldiers left Lebanon.
2000.
It supported the Palestinian to start to attack Israel, and now it's the same. We left Gush Katif. It's not Gaza. Because Gush Katif, the Jewish settlements, it's not Gaza. It's very far.
The city of Gaza.
The city of Gaza is close to Ashkelon. The Gush Katif, the Jewish communities, is
along the Mediterranean coast,
Yeah.
like
And you see
in the
influence.
border with Egypt.
Every time when the Jewish government leave Jewish places, it support and give power to the Palestinians to continue to attack Israel.
So now you all live, I know, very near the major city of Shechem. What's the Palestinian population of Shechem? Nablus.
It's about 250,000.
All right. So if you were to take, for example, and uproot your community, Kedumim, and all of you guys went to Tel Aviv, what would that area begin to look like?
It will be a Hamastan, as we call it.
Right.
They're exactly the same. Every child understands
They
it.
have already rockets to Ben Gurion airport.
Right.
And we know. And
So the idea that the settlements, the communities of Judea and Samaria, are some sort of giant impediment to peace is just a myth.
It's
Is-
a myth.
is-
They
is your
don't want
position.
the settlements. They never speak about Kedumim. When they speak towards their population and in the textbooks, they don't mention Kedumim, and they don't mention Karnei Shomron. They speak about Jaffa, they speak about Tel Aviv, about Haifa. And this is only an excuse for the process, for the salami process, to convince the world that they should support a Palestinian state, but this is an appetizer and a board to just jump to the continuing destruction of Israel.
It always amazes me that when we're talking about Judea and Samaria and all the conflict that supposedly surrounds that we're talking about here in Central Florida, a geographical area somewhat similar to Seminole, Orange, and parts of Osceola County. We're talking about really a tiny area. You could crisscross it in your car a few times in a day. And these communities, and by the way, our group has gone to Kedumim. We're involved in a project. We've been there for 3 or 4 years, taking work groups there, and we feel perfectly at home there. No threat. We walk. I stayed at Raphaella's house. They never locked their doors. We come and go, and it almost feels like the United States 50 years ago, as far as there's being no threat or peace in that regard. So, I know that, of course, there's been this recent war in Gaza, long overdue one, I expect, but whatever the case. You all related, I know you both had sons involved in that war, deployed there. You both expressed what you observed or your sons observed about a demonstration of faith or trusting God by the soldiers before they were going into battles, and how the rabbis worked with them. To tell you the truth, when I heard you describing it, it sounded like the historical accounts of the Maccabees. Tell us a little something about the faith that was demonstrated in the soldiers going into Gaza, into this very, very dangerous city, house-to-house type fighting, which is the worst possible setting for a soldier, I would think.
Especially that everyone knew that the Palestinians prepared and booby-trapped all the area. Everyone knew that this is going to be something very dangerous. I want to remark and say that in the past few years, more and more religious soldiers, especially from the communities, are in the Allied combat units, officers, and this has a very strong impact and influence on the whole army, their friends, the secular ones that haven't got belief and faith in God. And we saw it before the war. When the rabbis came, my son and Shoshannah's son too gave the same description. The chief rabbi of the army came and worshipped with them, and like before Joshua went to conquer Israel, the same paragraphs, and from Psalms, all the army joined and were praying and singing, and he provided Psalms, and all the soldiers, secular and religious, wanted to take with them the Psalms and the tzitzit, I don't know how you say in English, you know, those...
Phylacteries, I think, is the
Special
Greek word, but
clothes.
tzitzis,
Yes,
yeah.
tzitzis that represents your belief in God.
Yeah.
Everyone wanted to get one before they go into the battle. It was a very special atmosphere described by our sons of faith, belief, courage, that they're going to do a very important issue to save Israel. And
They felt it's a holy war. The spirit was holiness. They felt, and that's why you heard that the young soldiers who just got married left their new wife at home because they felt they are going to fight not on their ambition, because it was a right war. They felt it's a holy war that we have to go to defend our people, our brothers and sisters, and that's why the spirit was reflect to all the people in Israel, because we don't want to fight, we don't want to kill, we are not using our babies and our women as shahidim. They forced us to go inside the cities to fight. We didn't want. So the spirit was such a holy, and we prayed home, and they prayed in just before they went in. And thank God we saw a lot of miracles.
Yes, you spoke of those last night. Now, one of the things that seems evident to me is that gradually, and probably something we're talking over generations, but there is a change in the leadership in the Israeli Defense Force from perhaps young men coming out of the kibbutzim to now the young people coming out of these communities of Judea and Samaria. Are we seeing a rise up in the upper levels of command in the IDF coming out of the communities of Judea and Samaria? That I know there are men and women that are obviously highly motivated. I meet some of them from time to time. I believe your mayor at Kedumim is a
Major General.
Is a ranking officer
Yes.
himself.
And he goes, even now, every few weeks, he has a special training.
And he fought.
And he
the
fought in
Second
Lebanon War. And 90 of our boys were involved, only Kedumim, in the Lebanon War. And 70 of Kedumim boys were involved in the Gaza War now. And it's true what you're saying, and it was very obvious in the media, because the media interviewed the wounded and the, unfortunately, parents of the killed, those that were killed in the battle, and everyone saw, many of them, a high percentage, officers that are from our communities, religious, with a background of a committed feeling to the land of Israel. And probably there's a connection between those that feel the rights on the land and the connection to the history and their commitment to fight for the land.
Yes.
So
I want to change the subject just for a moment. There was a lot of speculation recently that obviously there is a growing threat from the development of nuclear arms in Iran that I think changes the picture in the whole Middle East. There was a lot of speculation in recent months that in the last months or weeks of the Bush administration, also the Olmert administration in Israel is only in its last days, because elections are going to be held in a couple of weeks in Israel, as I understand it. That these lame duck administrations that have nothing politically to lose would act on the Iranian threat and perhaps attack the. I feel confident that America has decided not to attack at all, because they didn't, and I read that they prevented Israel from doing so also. How do you now? You all sitting right in the heart of Israel. How do you feel about this growing? I mean, you have extended families all over Israel. How do you feel about this growing threat, a nuclear threat coming out of Iran?
First of all, it is a real threat, not only on Israel, it's a threat on the whole Western world. And that's a mistake not to realize that we are only the front line of the threat, the Islamic threat on the whole world. And we have experience from Hitler speaking, threatening, and doing. And the lesson should be learned that a person that, such a crazy person, that is speaking about going to destroy Israel by a nuclear bomb, and everyone knows that they are producing it and they're close to a bomb, they will do it. Therefore, we are very concerned, and we think it's a mistake not to take action and to go again to appeasement policy. So I think the important thing is to speak about the threat to everybody, not only to the Jewish people. And we learn from the Bible that God won't forsake the Jewish people. And maybe this is a historic point that we'll see God's hands, because the minute Israel is there's a threat on Israel and a threat on the whole world, we'll see his finger points doing something. And we have to pray, all of us, and do and influence the governments.
So you feel that the situation is developing at the point that perhaps I'm sure it's true in the communities that you live in, but perhaps in Israel more general, that you're coming to the point where God has to intervene for your survival.
No doubt.
Something very near that, it appears. So it's not that I doubt because I feel very, very strongly that God has gathered you back to those mountains and for His own purpose, and is doing that and will intervene. I often say that God has given very explicit promises to Israel. He hadn't given explicit promises to America, but to Israel He has. But you feel like there is a growth in just sheer faith and dependence that's widespread in Israel in that regard.
Everything that is happening now in Israel is actually so threatening, and so many illogical things are going on that you have to be blind not to understand that there's somebody beyond us running the world and controlling things, and we have to lift our heads and also believe in Him, and the only way. And more people understand that, oh God, we need your help. Mm-hmm. And this is actually maybe the plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would, the prophets were very explicit about the time of the ingathering and how that would be. And
it will be hard.
It will be hard.
And this time it's a Galut Ishmael, we say. Ishmael, it will come such a horrible time that God will force us to cry, to pray, till He will listen, till He will Yishmael, till the God will listen to our prayer. And we feel it's a time that we have to pray, to do as Raphaella mentioned, but to pray till He will listen to our prayers.
And you appear to be very near that. Unfortunately, that's one of the very difficult. You know, I teach through the Bible constantly and have courses on Bible prophecy, and I hate to actually speak with my Israeli friends about the biblical picture because the position in Bible prophecy of Israel is brings us to a point where it's very uncomfortable, that you're kind of out on a limb, and now I have absolute confidence that the God of the Bible has you in His hand and will protect and keep you, but still being on the point is uncomfortable, and certainly
difficult.
that must be it.
We have tests. Life in Israel is an ongoing test.
Sure.
Like our forefathers. And we have to go through this and withstand it. And the belief is very helpful.
Over the past several years, now I first was introduced to the community of Kedumim. Gosh, I hate to admit how long ago it was, but it was 1984. So that's what, 25 years ago?
25.
It doesn't seem like it could be that long, but it's been that long. in more recent years, we have for a long time believed that Christians, especially across the world, should be boldly supportive of these communities in the heartland of Israel because it seems more than obvious. It's a simple fulfillment of exactly what the scriptures have outlined that should be happening in our day. So our community has, we have worked with Raphaella and Shoshannah and others there to work on a park. And it's a modest little endeavor, but we're a modest little congregation. So, but for the past several years, we've sent groups over there and taken a mountainside and sort of made a water park. I don't know, Florida imported a water park to Israel. Let me ask your sense of that park and what we're doing there. How do you feel about that? You got a strange group of Christians coming in there every year or so and working for a couple of weeks, eating all your sweets in your house, drinking all your coffee, and tracking up your houses and so on. How do you feel about that?
We feel great and thankful, and it was such a unbelievable experience to meet you here yesterday, all those faces, those people who are working and staying in our houses. We feel like family, actually. It's not crazy people, partners, and we're only waiting for another month and a half for the next group. Not only we, the people in Kedumim are asking, when are those people coming again? Because we have a common agenda, and people feel it.
Yes.
The common agenda,
it's
the
like
common
Mashiach
belief.
time.
And,
the Christian and the Jewish people will...
And this park, it's not so modest. It's a natural park that we have. And if not you, it would have stayed, without nothing. It's overlooking Shechem. And more people come from Kedumim, from the area, from Tel Aviv. We're encouraging now tourism. It's a new issue in Yudan and Shomron. People are exposed to the tourism aspect, and through this, they will learn about the communities. And here we have this park that is overlooking Shechem, with ability to have a picnic, with the waterfalls, with children, and we want to thank you for it.
Yeah, we see the picture of the kids playing in the stream and so on, and delighting themselves in that. It's been a blessing to have you all with us. I want to say to our people that are watching us, now here's a couple of the ladies. They are mothers and grandmothers in Israel, and you've heard them now during this program. These are good representatives of these very what the media describes as stiff-necked extremist settlers that live in Judea and Samaria. I hope by our program tonight you've gotten a better sense of just who these folks are. And Shoshannah and Raphaella are typical of the hospitality and just the righteousness and goodness that's evident in these people that are living in the mountains of Judea and Samaria. That's our program for tonight. Thank you for tuning in, and do so each week as we bring you different perspective of biblical reality in Zaymach program. Shalom.